ありがとうございました。
Thank you, Admiral. I'd like to now move on to the keynote speech. I'd like to invite Dr. Sen Genshitsu, the Daisosho of Urasenkei, has kindly accepted to give this speech, keynote speech, despite his very busy schedule. Thank you. Good afternoon. As was just introduced, I am the former Iemoto of Urasenkei Tea Ceremony School. My name is Sen Genshitsu. I was actually very excited to be here because I was on the squadron in the Navy, and I was engaged, or I was actually a survivor of the attack in Okinawa. And I was a pilot in the Navy because in the Navy there were pilots, and I was very proud that I was selected as a pilot. It was only about 2 years that I spent as a pilot, but I was submerged in the naval tradition. I am now 92 years of age, and I'm very well and healthy. And one, that is because of tea. I'm not trying to advertise my family, but this tea ceremony have trained me very well. So I was not a spoiled child. And when I was a freshman student at university, I was conscripted. There were many who were joining the army, despite the fact that I was in the literature department, and I joined the Navy. Now, I joined the Navy, but initially I had to take examinations first. For 30 days, I was put into a group of sailors. And there were a series of tests. For 20 consecutive days, I was taking tests. And fortunately, I was able to pass the exam and was able to become the pilot at the Imperial Navy and joined the squadron. And I had the 3 months of training before I was actually joined in a combatant troop. I was trained again in the squadron. So it was a very stringent 10-month training because I was to go into the battlefield within 10 months. So there are people, sorry, from the United States, my enemy were Americans. As soon as I meet the Americans, it was, first of all, there was a Grumman-made aircraft, and the fighters of Japanese Navy, these fighters were actually disassembled by the Americans, and Grumman actually used all the parts of the Japanese fighters. So the cream of the Japanese technology on the fighters was actually taken away by Grumman. So the Grumman C, the new kind of aircraft, was already there. Actually, the Japanese fighters had a farther range and faster than the Grummans because we were able to escape the attacks from the Grumman fighters of the United States Navy. We were able to escape, or we were able to just turn around, and we were trained to do that. But Grumman C, their capabilities were improved. The aircraft technology of the Japanese Navy was very sophisticated, very good, and also the technology was very high. And as a pilot, I felt that not only the pilots are the combatants, but also the ones who were in the maintenance of the aircraft. Those engineers were also very competent in the Imperial Navy of Japan, they fostered very excellent, high-quality maintenance personnel. They were very seasoned, and they were officers already, very experienced. Of course, we only had 10 months of training, and they would salute to us, but they were the ones who were in the superior, because they would just leave out one bolt and will be the end of us. The wipers may not function. If we are bombarded, if the windshield wiper is inoperable, then we'll be gone. So we are very much respectful of the maintenance engineers. Now, we are now in JS Izumo, the latest state-of-the-art vessel, and I'm very grateful that I am on board of this, and I am able to talk about the tradition of the Navy and carrying on the tradition of Navy. Such a wonderful symposium I'm invited to, and Dr. Auer and other distinguished guests are here to discuss. I'm only given 30 minutes. How can I talk about the tradition and carrying on tradition? That's so difficult. However, I would like to say one thing. I was in the Navy, and in the 2 years, I was trained so extensively, and that has actually formed the basis of me being here and being healthy. Of course, I drink tea every day, and I serve tea through the tea practice, and I practice every day. I sit down, stand up. Physically, it's very demanding as well, but that has trained me well. But I would say that the fact that I was a pilot in the Imperial Navy has served me very well, and the spirit has served me well. And there is the 500 years of tradition in the tea ceremony. That's also my spiritual basis by Rikyu, the founder. So that has enabled me to survive. And now that I'm on JS Izumo, and I was given a tour, and I went up the ladder, I ran up it. You were supposed to skip skip a step. Coming down was actually very difficult. We had to slide down. So we were not supposed to walk down, but we were supposed to slide down these ladders or steps. And also, even on land, it was the same as if you were on board. So below the steps, there's a big mirror, and you have to stand up at attention and correct your posture. There is a motto by the naval officers that you have to, always be at attention. I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and at 5, there was an exercise that you had to do. It's called a Swedish exercise. That made me very agile. When I died, I don't think I will be broken into pieces. I'm very flexible physically, thanks to the exercise that was taught to me at the Navy. So having said that, in the not one long path, the way of the Navy, that's a way, it's a long path, a journey. After the Meiji Restoration, I visited Kobe recently at the customs at Kobe. There is a mark that said that this used to be a training ground for the the Imperial Navy. So seas were actually was very respected. The British way of a naval tradition was incorporated into Japanese Navy, and still the MSDF has then transcended or the tradition of the Imperial Navy. So tradition, what's the difference between tradition and carrying on that tradition? Tradition is based on a historical facts. It is a long path, which is accumulation of historical facts. However, well, that's tradition. And you can say that in one word, tradition. Traditional in English. Japan has a very long history, so there are traditions in very many places. For example, 500 history of tea ceremony, that's with us, but there are other traditions that have prolonged for 700 years, 800 years. And these traditions, since it was founded or started, the tradition has been handed down, and the authentic way in which it was carried on, there was continuity, but not discontinuity. And that continuity is actually the very basis of a long tradition. Secondly, carrying on that tradition, succeeding that tradition, is another thing. In English, transmission is how you put it. Transmission is not just taking what has been passed on to you, but ceaselessly make effort so that it will go on forever. For example, taking my example, the tea of there were some lords, feudal lords, who became a tea master, who served Hideyoshi Toyotomi. Sen no Rikyu was the founder. He served the feudal lords. He was was a warlord, but he liked tea, and he used tea, or the tea ceremony. Well, information and intelligence. Well, information is easily accessible these days with your smartphones and PCs. But in many cases, the information may not be authentic, and there is so many different kinds of information. I do not use PCs, but what I hear from other people that there are some erroneous information that you may have access to. But what is most important is for an organization like a company or a navy, intelligence. That's most important. Intelligence may be classified information, or it may not be, but the very critical, most important set of information that may have been handed down from the past, and that intelligence then would have to be transmitted to the appropriate places. That's intelligence. Looking at the politics and diplomacy of Japan recently, there is vulnerability in intelligence in Japan. In China, I don't know about Korea, but China, they have a very strong intelligence. Of course, they have a lot of money, but at the same time, they have intelligence, which is very advanced in China. So apparently, a Japanese has been held for espionage activities in China. Well, espionage activities have been in place in the Edo period. The ninjas were spies. Each clan had to be patrolled to prevent rebellions. So there were spies who were sent out to these different clans and local areas. Sen no Rikyu, our founder, he had a mission to collect all kinds of intelligence and provide it to the Lord. Nobunaga or Hideyoshi were more powerful than Prime Minister Abe to provide intelligence, the correct, accurate information to his lords. And that piece of intelligence was used to put together policies and implementing it. So in Japan, in the Tokugawa period, they had that tradition. Maybe we should give a revisit those traditions that we've had in those days. Another thing that's very important is transmission. So transmission we have been protecting and defending for 500 years the tradition of tea, and this will be continued. And the responsibility is with the next generation. But we would have to make sure that we receive the information so that it will then be transmittable to the next generation. So how do we succeed it? And then how do I translate it down to the next generation? That is my mission, and that is something that I'm responsible. Otherwise, you cannot use the word transmission.
In case of maritime or air self-defense force, there is a set rule, because those are the organizations. There are strict rules that people have to follow, and within that rule, what's important? Of course, the leadership is important. Leadership of the leader, and Hawaii or Midway battle. Well, we were just petty officers, but thanks to the leadership, we had a lot to learn from. And when we fly the air, we fly with a lot of intelligence and information. We don't fly all over with freedom, no. With a set within the organization, you cannot do that, because if you do, you would get derailed from tradition. And Japan was born as a country of God. So this battleship or this escort ship is called Izumo, which I'm very thankful, because the God of Izumo has given us a lot of merit to us. And in those days, Buddhism was not very popular, or didn't even arrive in Japan, because the people working for the palace was in charge of protecting the god, and they prayed for the god. We have a prayer, but that's actually it can be said just one time only. For instance, Admiral Otsuka, if we want to pray, or if the priest wants to pray for Admiral Otsuka, that prayer is chanted only just once. If the priest wants to pray for somebody else, the priest has to say something else, has to come up with another prayer. Well, those are the words, and the words is a medium, intermediary in between the god and the people working for the palace. And so that was a messenger boy kind of role. But Buddhism has a Sanskrit kalma, or the chanting, and Sanzo Hoshi had to struggle to get that Buddhist chanting, came back with that, and then praying. But again, God is one, and the prayer was one. So there's nothing that is transmitted. The word cannot be transmitted. Only the body of the human being can transmit. So there are verbally transmitted words, and their knowledge, or the knowledge that should be learned from the body. In 10 months, according to our experience, the propeller airplane, well, first time in the we flew what we called akatombo, a propeller plane, and we had to learn. We had to fly that in 15 to 16 hours by myself. And there was a training plane, well, with a trainer in the back, but that you had to learn from what you see. And the training says, "Look at me," and how I manage the York, and look at the instrument in front of you. And many times of training took place. And like on the fleet of vessels, we have a port side and starboard side. And we said Yosoro in Japanese. Yosoro. I was wondering what it means. Yosoro means Yoroshiki Soro. And that's a naval word used it's like, are you okay? Are you okay to turn certain degrees to the right and certain degrees to left? And then okay was in our case Yosoro. We use that word to confirm it was okay. And if the rule is, there was a 15-minute rule. For instance, if you get up at a certain time, then 15 minutes before that, you have to be getting up. And in a tea ceremony, we say kokugen should be early. In our tea ceremony and the naval teaching are very similar. And even if it doesn't rain, you have to be prepared for the rain. There's another saying. You can't be unprepared all the time. You have to be really prepared all the time. No matter what happens, you have to be able to cope with that situation. That is, and another saying is, please take care of your neighbors. Please take care. You are not alone. We are not alone in the fleet because we didn't fly alone. So we were told that look at right and left and distance of the planes around you. And with using a cardboard, we made a wing of airplanes and put those on the bicycle so that we can simulate the movement of the airplane to see that how distant we have to be to each other. And it was very interesting. If we didn't do that, then we could have hit each other, causing an accident. So first we did what we used a cardboard, cut the cardboard to make a wing, put on the bicycle to practice. So the sense of distance, it was good, very good way to learn the sense of distance, and it's a very high angle. Angle you have to look at, and you have to open your eyes quite large, so your eyeballs become bigger and bigger when you fly. And what I learned, we taught others. Sometimes we were hit, but that accelerated our learning. Now, I don't think the young people now, like 22 years or 23 years people, can do it. We joined the military when we were still university student, so we were instantly made military personnel. But at once, the spirit was instilled in us. We were born in a very old family, traditional family. So once we joined the Navy, it was immediate we could learn what the legacy. And we were just petty officers, but there are a lot of veterans. There are a lot of officers. How to talk to them, how to deal with them, with the flag officers, field officers, and so those people. And there was a intermediary between officers and non-commissioned officers called I don't know the chief petty officer, and that person worked as a continuity, made sure that continuity was there. And on this wonderful escort ship Izumo, I'm talking to you, and which is very nice. I went up and down the tarap or the ladder, and I sat on the chair of the captain of this ship, and I'm grateful for that. So in that sense, we live in the tradition and transmission of the tradition, and we shouldn't make it look too beautiful. We have to make sure that we have to utilize the tradition within the practically in the society. The tea ceremony, as you may think, is not necessary. It may look for some people, but we have to set our mindset, prepare tea, serve some sweets, although it's not that gorgeous. But when those are served, tea and sweets are served, it's done just for you. It's just done. It's done just so that you can become happy with just this cup of tea. And then when people drink it, they say, "Oh, thank you. I drink in front of you." And then the next person says, "Let me taste it. Let me drink it. Itadakimasu." That a cup of tea makes people unite to each other, to make gentle to each other. That's why otemae, or the tea ceremony, exists. People who don't think otemae is necessary, then it's fine. They can just make tea just for themselves, an excellent tea. But then that cup of tea could be served for everybody's happiness, peace. But when I was in the Navy, I brought a lot of tea boxes and served tea for friends and colleagues. In the last minute, when we left for suicide attack or kamikaze attack, I also served tea, and people said, "Oh, it's very tasty." Tetsushiro Morioka, who was the first to leave, well, he was a rugby player of Tokyo Agricultural University. We grew up together in the Navy, but then in 1945, April 29, Mr. Morimoto left with a Zero-sen, the fighter, and he said he showed me a distorted cup which looked like a rugby ball, and Morimoto, I served tea in that teacup, and Mr. Morimoto said, "Please send this cup to my relative's house. If Mr. Sen survives, then give this to Sen." I didn't know until later that he died in the war. But after the war ended, I came to know that Mr. Morioka passed away, dedicating his life to the country, and then buried in the Yasukuni Shrine. And there's in Okinawa, by the way, there were women's squad to fight, and those who perished in Okinawa are also buried in Yasukuni. The young people would leave for fight, saying, "Oh, I will wait for you at Yasukuni." There was Ishimaru at Chuo University. He was a baseball player, and he always had a glove. He would do a catch. When he left, the glove and ball he threw at us, and then left with a plane. I still remember that scene. We were just 22 or 23 years, and in order to protect the country, as a member, we became the member of, proudly became the member of Navy, the Imperial Navy. But I inherited the spirit of those who perished in the war, and that's the tradition. And this tradition should never be ended. We have no war. We are in a peaceful time, but Maritime Self-Defense Force should thrive to save people's life, and that's one of the very noble cause of the self-defense. So we bombed the city, we bombed the cities and killed people, but now there's a collective defense right, and that's some measures that we have gained to cover yourselves. But please don't forget that there is a tradition transmitted from the Imperial Navy. And what's important also is to transmit that to the next generation. So please make that a challenge or your goal, that is to transmit once again your tradition to the next generation. Well, I was given 30 minutes. I have a lot more I would like to talk about. We have to have bun and bu, which bun is the study, the little, and bu is the force. Well, I was born in a family of tea ceremony. That's a bun, but I fought for my country as a and fight the war. That's bu. My ancestor Sen no Rikyu was the same. In that sense, I have walked with the destiny, a very volatile destiny of Japan. But the spirit of tea, again, is the spirit of the transmission of the tea ceremony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sen. And Mr. Sen is now going to retire from this symposium venue because he is extremely busy. But thank you very much once again. We'd like to express our sincere appreciation to him for taking his time to spend with us. Thank you.